Women in Bitcoin is sponsored by BTCX, Sweden's first Bitcoin exchange, and now also Bitcoin Treasury. Since 2011, we made it easy to buy and sell Bitcoin. Visit bt.cx and discover the power of safe money. BTCX, making Bitcoin easy. Welcome to a new episode of Women and Bitcoin, the podcast where me, Rebecca, and you, Hani, hello, explore the mother of coins from a female perspective, of course. And today's guest is a true powerhouse. So we both, me and Hani, had the pleasure of meeting her at different events. And nearest in time, I think, was the Nordic Blockchain Conference. And I have to admit, Angelica, I had an instant sister crush. And when you also told me that you love Bitcoin, well, I almost proposed. So her name is Angelica Lips da Cruz, born in Brazil, moved to Sweden at the age of 18, I think. You can correct me later. With an interest in mathematics, she went on to study economics, and life led her to the world of banking. So she's worked at Citibank in London and SEB, among other things, and has deep knowledge in many different financial instruments. And she's been responsible for more than 2,000 financial systems. So let's hear more about that later. She loves entrepreneurship, creativity, and problem solving. And what better problem solving is there than Bitcoin? Today, she's finally guesting our podcast. So let's pump her for information. Angelica Lips da Cruz.
Welcome. It's an honor to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Hani. Thank you so much, Rebecca. It is an honor to be here and to be sharing my knowledge and my story, perhaps.
Yes.
With everyone that would be listening.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Rebecca introduced you that you're born in Brazil and your mother of three with a creative international career in Stockholm. I mean, let's start. Who are you? What's your background? And how did that journey unfold?
Right. Let's see if I can do this in a short way. So I always wanted to be abroad and to study abroad. So already when I was 12 years old, I was, asking my parents, please, I want to study abroad. Please, I want to study abroad. And at that time, if you were born in Rio de Janeiro, you live in a beautiful city. Rio was the heart at that time of Brazil and South America. And I was thinking about America, US, of course, that's where everybody's going. And my father said, we have friends in Uppsala. Why don't you go and try to see if you like it there and if you want to study there? And when I came, I was immediately, I thought it was exotic. I mean, imagine Uppsala from Rio. It was extremely exotic. And I always joke with my father and say, perhaps you were thinking that I was going to be afraid of the cold, of the snow, but I thought it was exciting. And then I just went. I was supposed to be studying for a couple of years and then going home, but that never happened. So I studied and then I started working and then I stayed and then I stayed and 1 year passed, 1 year, and then 10 years passed. And I wanted to be in London. And the rest is story, because that's when I started at Citibank, and that's when I continued my journey that actually starts with my ancestors. So it was not only me entering financial services and the investment industry, big banks like Citibank, where I've been at very high level positions in charge of Europe, in charge of big portfolios such as the autos and industrials at the time, the queen of credit, the structured finance. We did a lot of things that are out of this world, that is not possible, saving business that, were bankrupt, not possible. And Angelica always looked into, hang on there, we can do something about this. Look at this, look at the securities, look at these collaterals, look at the purpose and the people behind it. Always, for me, I will always say, the people behind it. So yes, my father's father and the whole that side of the family, they were brokers. They were in the financial industry. And to my surprise, when I entered the city at the time, my father said, "Oh, that's great, Angelica. We did so many business, and we, allowed for so many companies to enter Brazil through our business, Lips da Cruz." But this is a long time ago. So that's when I understood that, oh my God, it's not only me and what I like, it's in my genes.
You
It's a
have
little bit of
amazing genes that we can tell you.
at
But
cell
but
level.
yeah, for sure. But one thing I'm very curious.
Yes,
You understand over 60 finance instrument. I
yes.
mean, I don't know. I'm not from the finance world, and I'm not. I'm just involved in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
How does one even learn that? And when did you start? And does it
Yeah.
make any sense? So tell him more about these 60 financial instrument to
And
us.
Yes.
sorry, can you also explain what a financial instrument is
Is
Oh,
absolutely
for
that's
those who
good.
does not know?
okay. Perfect. Perfect. Let's start from very basics. The financial industry exists to make availability of liquidity and capital for businesses. Okay, so let's just hold to that. Of course, it's for private people and for institutions and custody and all of asset management, wealth management. There are many layers of it, but let's just focus on investments and financial instruments. So financial instruments are, I would say, a way of providing capital, you could say that is in a way that the regulation allows. It could be in a way that is most optimal for your situation. And then I'm going to use some terms that would call like for your capital structure of your balance sheet, for your cash flow. It means that, of course, depending on your situation and your company situation, maybe a loan is easier and better and cheaper for you. But if you are a company operating in China, for example, for 20 years ago, we were working with letters of credit, with guarantees, depending on the regulative environment. This is important to understand because not everybody operates as broad as I do and as I did in my whole life. And I have to thank that to a beautiful boss that I had at Citibank when I entered the financial world. At that time, I was coming from a corporate world. I was coming from economy director. I was working with companies and businesses. But when I entered the bank, he allowed me 3 months of looking into all the businesses, from exchange, from FX, from derivatives, warrants, loans, everything. And then I started. So I have to thank him a lot. His name is Andrew. And it was a school for me. And of course, when I saw that balance sheet, I saw the big capital, I saw the big movements in FX. And I said, oh, does this exist? Is this for real? Being in London, looking into that was let me say, it's a joy. I love it. And it's something that perhaps I saw when I was 6, 7 years old, when I was at the office of my grandfather, and I saw the exchanges, it was not digital at that time. So I saw them, talking. It was manually. The stock market was manually. They were, purchasing manually. The trust is huge. So this is a passion that I have and a joy. So I guess I carry that with me. And so let's dive into different financial instruments. So derivatives, warrants, they are different. They just a stock in the stock market or a bond, for example, that people could issue. So it's different ways that you can have, depending on the legal situation as well. If it's with a guarantee, like when you purchase something, right? If you
Yes.
have a guarantee, there is something attached to that product. You can say that these 60 variables are different ways of assessing the capital and managing the capital. So another example could be when you have a loan or a leasing or a factoring instrument that is with recourse or without recourse. So all these names, they just mean different things if things go wrong, put it this way. So like more or less like saying, is Bitcoin a commodity or a security? It actually means what kind of legal entitlement does the person have when it holds such an instrument? Because a Bitcoin could also say it's a digital currency, but it's an instrument as well. It's cash. Cash is an instrument as well. You can talk about that in that perspective, put it this way. And then, of course, we can go into the area of saying, so what is capital? But there is a flow, and the flow is important to understand. And perhaps with all this background that I have and the responsibilities that I had with all these systems, and we developed systems. Imagine in my I would say generation, it was not about just capital, it was also about developing systems. So I'm in the middle of that, the technology, the systems, and some systems are developed for 80 years ago, and some are developed for 10 years ago, right? So it's that intersection that I love, and it is the optimization of that I love for the people's best.
Okay.
Did you ever feel lonely with this financial banking system as being a woman? I mean, it is, you love what you do and you have such a big passion, but
Yes.
did you ever felt like you were alone because you were a woman? Did you feel uncomfortable because of you were a woman in that environment?
Yeah. Honey, it's not the first time I hear that question. And so let's be honest here. In a men's world, of course, there were some situations that were very awkward. In some situations, I was excluded. Yes, even though I was the director or the executive in charge. I believe this is truly based on cultural changes and differences that people, carry with themselves. So, for example, when I was in charge of Europe, I was working from Kazakhstan to Iceland. And in certain countries, it was better that I was not directly involved, even though I was the head behind it. I always put one of the people that were working with me, that was a guy, so they could face the client, because the client wouldn't even look at me because I was a woman. So it exists. It exists also among our the colleagues and the team at that time. So it was not all the time that they, but they were so nice to me. So I have to say, I don't have any bad times, but sometimes, yes, the guys were going out to celebrate because they had received a big bonus, and they looked at me and said, Angelica, we don't think you want to go with us, right? And I said, no, thank you. Because they were doing things I wouldn't do. Put it this way, to be very diplomatic here.
Yes.
So yes, and some, I would say the toughest part to be a woman is when people feel so much, because they don't believe that that you are at that level. So when they hear the knowledge, I have to say, some guys get intimidated, and that's quite tough, because it's never my intention.
Yeah. I was thinking of a sentence now, just popped in. So you were called the queen of credit, but you didn't get credit for it, right?
That's an interesting one. But the colleagues that were working with me, they always talk about that. But and then the clients, of course, I have had beautiful clients, always wanted me to be there. But what you're talking about is that sometimes you don't get the career, let's say, that you were imagining from the beginning, just because there are glass ceilings. There are people that won't let you, through, even though you have performed perfectly. It's not about that, I think. It's also about structures and organizations. So yes, that exists. And I would say it exists a lot also in the market that is a digital market. It does.
It does,
Yeah.
for
So
sure.
it's all around the world, actually, and I believe it's cultural. I believe it's the comfort zone of everyone that sometimes gets stretched, just because we are, just present as a woman in the room.
Yes, exactly. And that's why me and Hani are trying to be as present as possible in all this, especially in the, I mean, this exists, of course, in the Bitcoin
Exactly.
circle as well. So
yes.
so one day at a time, and one conversation at a time, and So it's clear that you have a lot of passion in what you do. Yeah, we hear it on your voice and in your tone and everything. So let's move over to entrepreneurship and social innovation that you're also passionate about. So I'm gonna ask you a question. So I think it was last week or something. My daughter, who's 7, she said, "Mama, how do you make money?" And I was like, "Yeah, by working." I was going to say like, "Yeah, by working." And then my husband was jumping in like, "Yeah, but what is working?" So we went into a discussion. So he was like, "Yeah, but it's by helping others." So we told her like, "Yeah, you make money by helping others." So Angelica, what would you have told my daughter? Or
I love that. Yes. I mean, having 3 daughters, I know exactly the question. Working was something for 50 years ago that is not anymore. Let's start there.
Okay.
When I explain how you earn money to my daughters, I tell them several ways of doing that. So work is today, I hope, because this is how I lived my whole life, a lifestyle. It's how you evolve in the world with a purpose. That's work for me. But I know not everybody is there. And I tell my kids and everybody around, I do mentor some entrepreneurs today, and have done that for a long time now, that it is always down to your heart. But let me give you a clear example. When you look into capital structures for a company that is, for example, without liquidity, in need of loan or a credit, I always look into what is the purpose that we will continue with, or what is it that they are not going to, earn money from the work or from the purpose that would matter a lot for us, for the company, or for the world. In economic terms, this is called risk. So I would suggest for everybody listening to this is where you put your time, that's your risk. That's what you're doing. And that is your, if it's a passion, a mission, or just work, just be very aware of that. If you are in a room working with some people and doing some, let's call it work, that is where you are and not in other alternatives place. And this can go for, an individual, a business, and even a currency. It's the same. It's interesting to talk about that. So for my kids, I always say work is and should be a lifestyle, something that makes you evolve. Now, of course, you need to get some money, but when we think about that here in Sweden, it's actually very squared.
Still,
We are in Sweden, we are based in Stockholm, but yes, my experience of more than 22 countries, from Asia to South America, North America, Europe, all of them, it's very different. It's extremely different how you see your work. And the best example I have is actually when a big boss was going on retirement. We were in a celebration and he came a little bit side and he started crying around me, and I was like, "Oh my God, can I take care of you? What should I do?" Mother instincts. And he looked at me with tears in his eyes and he said, "I don't know what I am when I go on retirement."
no.
So that's very sad, you see, because if you have a work and a title, that's not the entire you, right? So this is what we are talking about. So when I talk to the kids, I always say, do something that you love. The entrepreneur is the same thing. Do something that you love, because that will generate flow, energy, and capital. Capital is energy.
Yes. And as I'm educated as a social worker in the beginning, and this is very clear that it's a true life crisis to retire. So people lose their purpose, their sense of purpose, and many go to addictions of different kinds, or just pacify themselves or whatever.
Right.
So
You're talking about identity, right? The
yes,
identity, which is, I always talk to people, also advising in business, think about the identity not only for yourself, but for your business. That's so important, but it's not a squared thing. If it has a meaning, it has multiple opportunities.
yes, yeah. So I'm going to move on. So I found a speech that you gave when I Googled you.
Okay.
And you said that it's not money that drives entrepreneurs. It's the desire, like, initially when you start a business, it's the desire to solve a problem. So is this still valid? I think this is going to turn into, övergång to Bitcoin. But is this still valid for you?
Yes, let's talk about that. So, of course, let's say a global system is designed to drive people's intentions towards money.
Yeah.
That is an opportunity, but also a trap, because it's actually not the money itself you are looking for, is it? The money is a tool enabling something. And what is it that is something? It could be a product, it could be something you want to buy, but it could be an experience, it could be a business. And for entrepreneurs, in my opinion, when I hear an entrepreneur saying, and I ask always the first question, why are you doing this? Why are you spending, 20 hours a day, perhaps, sometimes to lift this? And if they say it's because of the money, I give 10 years.
What advice would you give? I mean, if somebody would say, I do it for money, what is the initial thought comes in your mind?
It's because it's more or less like chasing something that is an energy and enables a something that you're wanting to do. But if you get trapped thinking that that is the intention, then I believe that's the wrong intention. And at one stage, it kills you. So let's talk about macro level. Okay. Some people in the world today talk about what's the issue with US. And some people say that, oh, it's a trap because of the oil. So let's just take that as an example because it's easy to explain than Bitcoin. If you just chase the money and then you exploit natural resources for that, you can kill the whole economy. So back to a sustainable development, I would suggest that if you can work with regenerative systems, not thinking that man can be in the focus of a natural, huge, immense natural system that operates, and we are just, ants in the little, space of this huge planet. Come on, it's like we can be together working with this, together with us, the natural resources, but not for the sake of greediness, not for the sake of getting it in a few hands. I think it breaks.
Yes.
And I believe the financial bursts of 2008 and before that as well. And remember, I come from Brazil. I've seen when governments kill the economy, when governments freeze everybody's money, when governments have a inflation of 18% a day. Imagine for everybody listening to this, you go and buy your milk, it's 10 crowns today. Tomorrow it's 11, and then it's 12, and then it's 13. You can't operate in a system like that. And I believe truly that we have created those systems, therefore we create new ones. And Bitcoin was just one of them. And it's a very good experiment, put it this way, to show that, oh, this is another system and it can operate like this. And it's a commodity, by the way. And everybody could diversify their assets and their let's say, hedging for these inflations and breakdowns in the microeconomy? Yes, I believe it can. As you could have your money and your wealth in minerals, for example, that you believe it's a natural resource, right? But remember, it's digital. It's another created system. It's not natural. And we operate a lot in created systems, like in a country, regulations, taxations. These are all systems we have created. And I truly believe if we have created, we can create it again and we can make it better and for our kids.
Absolutely amazing.
Hallelujah.
I mean, I want to take you actually to, because you are on the topic on the Bitcoin, and I want to take you on the path on the Bitcoin. I want to take you deep dive in the rabbit hole, and I want to take a little bit back. And I would just say, when and how did you first become interested in Bitcoin in the first place?
Yeah. So I was still working for one of the investment banks, and I was in charge of many financial instruments. I was a product expert at that time. When I started looking into, oh, what's going on here? I love technology and innovation. So I looked into that. That's a long time ago now. And there were interest from many banks to enter projects. One of them was Corda, if anybody remembers that. And that was very interesting. I was very close looking into that. And I understood that this is extremely interesting. At that time, it was Ethereum and Bitcoin that we were looking at. And of course, because of the they're two completely different things, right? So Ethereum had at that time was not even just one company. So it was different to operate with that, thinking about what can possibly happen here. And therefore you have different smart contracts and these kind of things. And I was looking into that. That's a long time ago, at the very early beginnings. And then I saw Bitcoin and I saw what was going on there. And I got fascinated, I have to say. But this is my spirit. I'm very curious. I like to see new technology and to see, okay, does this has a substance? I'm always there. You know, once you are a credit analyst and working with credit, you're always looking for the substance. Or is this just bluff? And there are a lot of bluffs out there, yes, but not Bitcoin, right? So it's different. It's the way they've structured. And please let me also be very honest. There are some things in the traditional markets that are bluff, but people don't even talk about that anymore because they
Oh,
have
can you give us an
normalized it.
example?
Some derivatives that went really wrong. You know, the financial crisis was in 2008 was an example of that, when
Yes.
they were creating derivatives out of mortgages, out of the others, you know, what is the substance out of that?
Mm.
And then, you know, it's a bubble, it bursts. And then unfortunately, everybody's involved, but one guy or two guys get the blame. That's not really fair.
No, no,
So,
exactly.
so you do have a lot of, uh, um, I would say you need to look for what's behind. What's behind the hype? What is going on? Is the technology and the coding really good? Is the bank, let's talk about traditional banks, are they really good? I've seen banks going bankrupt. We've seen banks going bankrupt. So remember, for everybody here, a bank is also a private company many times, so they can go bankrupt.
Bankrupt.
They can.
Absolutely.
So talking about financial risk, I don't see the big hype talking about that crypto market would be that many, a lot of more risk than traditional. I mean, it depends. You have to look into what are we talking about, because there are many layers and many different products, and they are based on different things. Yeah, I
So
would say
what's the substance in Bitcoin, would you say?
I'm not the right person to explain
Okay.
that.
We can
But
edit it.
I would suggest, I think it was operating today at above $120,000, right? One Bitcoin. I would suggest that when you have a market cap at that level, it has a substance.
Mm.
It's not a fly.
No,
Put it
no.
this way. So if you look into any company at the stock market, if they are operating with a turnover of more than $1 million,
Mm.
there is substance.
Mm.
Otherwise, ooh, be careful. Look into what are you doing, right? So this is important to understand. You need to, I know Sweden is a very small market. Now, of course, I'm talking broad and talking about the macro level. However, it's important that you see where do you have activity, where is the substance, and then if you are the mind to look into the codes, and that's what I mean, that I'm not the right person. I know coding, but I'm not the one to really look into that. I leave that to the beautiful developers and partners that I have around me. I always ask, is this holding? Is this coding holding? Because you do have cybersecurity today that you need to look for and you need to be aware of. There is an issue. I would suggest that any system, not only Bitcoin, if you have a bad cybersecurity today, if you have attacks, it can go down. We know that.
Yes. Yeah.
But
We not
Angelica,
only on
if we have a lot of listeners who and me also is so new into this Bitcoin world, and I'm completely new, but Rebecca will say I'm not new, but I'm kind of new in that community. And if someone wants to start with Bitcoin today, and what are the first 3 steps you would recommend in your experience?
Yeah. So now I'm going to be very honest now. And this is not a financial advice. This is from my heart. Bitcoin is expensive today. It's very expensive today. And it's like buying an expensive stock is also very expensive. Be careful. However, depending on the situation and the intention of buying Bitcoin, if you are buying because you see that your dollar notes are, in the most risky that they could be, with a debt of above $30 trillion, well, then there is a good cause, right? And therefore, we are seeing institutions and large players moving and hedging and what I call it diversifying their capital into Bitcoin, for example. So, and there are some other coins, like let's say the 5 biggest ones that are trading today. And then there is technology. So I would say to everybody, don't be afraid. It is there to stay. The digital world is there to stay. Technology is there to stay, but use it as a tool. Don't go, crazy out of your mind, and be sensible with what your purpose is and what your pocket, I always call it, your pocket is. So of course it depends what you're doing an investment for, or where you are going to put your money at. For example, it's very risky to put in a stock where you don't know the owners or you don't know what the business is going, and it can go bankrupt, can go to zero. Yes. Bitcoin can go to zero. Yes. It can go to 1 million. I don't know. Some people say it can. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see.
It's interesting. It's interesting. But Bitcoin is expensive today. Did I answer your question, Hani?
No, you said that the three you gave a 3 example. It is expensive, and then I think as well you mentioned that you need to see your budget. What is your budget, and where do you want to risk that money into? That you have to be a bit aware, but you also have to take a risk.
Yes,
I mean,
and
and start somewhere.
Yes.
If I
Oh, you
understood.
have to start. Exactly. Because the more you delay, the more expensive it becomes. You have to think about that. So the whole thing about investing is that you invest when it's less expensive, so you can see your money growing. That goes for Bitcoin, for a stock, for anything, even a bond coupon with a tenor of 8 years or 10 years. That's what you do. And this could be a governmental bond, or it could be a bond issued by a company. So all of these instruments, again, the financial instruments are valid. You need just to be believing and sensible about the price and what you want to do and for how long time. So again, I'm always talking about long term. I'm not a market trader. These guys, they can do much quicker things during the day, and that's their life, and that's their purpose.
That's what they are putting their time into.
Exactly. And that's different. That's a different. If you are a day trader, that's different.
Yeah.
But Angelica, I mean, I'm very interested. You've been in the banking and financial world. What is the benefit has Bitcoin gave you? I mean, you've been in a financial world,
Okay.
but what does Bitcoin means for you? I mean,
Right.
it's probably a lot of people is as you said, is an investment, or maybe it's a tool, or it's empowerment for people, a woman, or something. What does it mean for you?
I have to go into a more philosophical answer.
Go for
Go
it.
for it.
Um, for me, what Bitcoin shows is that there is other systems and ways of making capital accessible to everyone.
Mm.
And that is not centralized into one person, government, or institution. Like I said, remember, I'm brought up in South America. I know what that means. It can breaks. We can give a lot of examples of different countries where when the government and the governance of that country is not stable with the intention for everybody and for the population is not having even water sometimes, or medications, or enabling them to grow in a, I would say, a human right purpose.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe. When you see a system created as Bitcoin, it's digital, it's the way it is. With not an infinite resource, right? I'm talking about the mining. So this is interesting because it shows us it's possible, and that the capital market is actually willing to play that game. That's interesting for me. So Bitcoin showed something that I worked a lot with, and it's this leverage of the capital. So let me give you another example. When you work with credit and you say, okay, I have just $10 in my pocket and I need to go and sell and create this business for me, so I need 100. So what you can do is that you can take that 10, you create a loan, so you can get the 100, so you can grow your business. And that is in the hands of a few to decide if you can do that or not. And I believe that systems that are decentralized, they can create that energy and that possibility, the infrastructure for people to do that in a more fair and distributed way. And that's something that I love.
Mm. That's beautiful. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you. You should know that I've been looking into DAOs, I've been looking into
Yeah.
distributed ledger technology, and I know there is a long way to go, but it's possible. That's what we've seen. It's
Yeah.
possible.
It is.
And
It is possible.
yeah, and it gives people the certainty that it's possible, that they are not limited by, for example, if Angelica was in a bank and saying, I'm sorry, I can't give you the credit. So, I mean, you see, it's possible. And I love that.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and you should know that I always find a way to be flexible, to give a loan. That's my purpose. That's my job. That's why I'm yeah, some people call me the credit queen, so I put it there in my profile.
That's perfect. Then we know who to come to when we need a credit.
Yes.
So we were talking about risk earlier, and some people would argue that it's riskier, like not to get into Bitcoin and to stay out of the cryptosphere, once and for all. So and let's talk a little about the fact that in many cases, like in media, for instance, Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain are used very synonymously and interchangeably. So could you please help us distinct them from one another?
Yeah.
And why also those distinction matters? Because some
Yes.
people are like, yeah, I know. But
So I see and hear a lot of people talking about Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain as if it was the same. It's not. Blockchain is a technology, it's very transparent, it's on chain. We have had that for years. We have operated with that, and it's brilliant. It is not, again, a trend. This is to stay. Okay. When you know accounting the way I do, that's a dream come true when you work with blockchain. Now, crypto is digital currency. Some of them have more substantial, some of these tokens don't. So you have to be careful. Okay, the crypto market has a reputation, and some people say, "Oh, that's all played by terrorists." Let's put it this way. No, it's not true. And by the way, the AML exists in the traditional financing because there's a lot of terrorists. Okay, so it exists in both systems. Let's cut the arguments that are not there. So blockchain is transparent better than old traditional systems, and I can say that as I created many of them, and I managed many of them. And the crypto market has good things, and some of them are really bad. Yes, and you need to be sensible. Now to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first one, right? Was the experiment that went. And it's a dream come true. Put it this way, that works. It's a commodity. I would say, let me give you this. When you have different instruments, again, when we call a commodity is a resource. It's an asset. It's different than a stock. So that should be treated separately. And we are seeing now the regulation in different countries being much more knowledge about that, so they can create these regulations that make the market more fair, and by doing that, customers and people that owns a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin can be more safe because the market is operating in a good way. And so and Bitcoin is one of the cryptocurrencies, put it this way. So there you go. So 3 different things. And then let's also raise the standards and say that Bitcoin in Sweden is one thing. Bitcoin, another part of the world, is something completely different. Bitcoin in a country in South America, because of their own currency not having any how can I say, stable security, Bitcoin could be a good alternative for them to operate with. So that's one. It's called reserves, financial reserves. So today you have dollar. The dollar is still a huge reserve currency. And I'm going to make a prediction. It's going perhaps to have to change.
Yes.
So let's say that we don't.
What would you say to the?
So because it's let's put it in a very interesting language here, just to picture this better. If the backing up of a dollar is oil, and the oil is an old thing today because we have different ways of creating energy. So what's backing up the dollar? So what's, the reserve that we're talking about, that China has a lot, that Japan has a lot. So what's going on? And when they reduce those reserves, what is the risk that the dollar is having? Is huge, people. But this is a transition. It doesn't happen from one day to another, right? So Bitcoin didn't get to $120,000 and plus in one day.
No.
So we need to be understanding what are we working with here as a currency, as a capital reserve, as a resource reserve. And before it was the gold, and then it became the dollar. Based on what is my question? And then what's the next thing?
Yeah. Well, folks, we don't have to say that. So would you say, just to clarify, would you say that Bitcoin is closer to like oil, gold, like a resource that you can take out of the earth, rather than Swedish krona, for instance?
It's so for me, Bitcoin is a commodity, yes. So it's closer to gold, but it's not a currency that you can pay with. We know that. No. So I wouldn't compare to these digital currencies that you can pay with. But of course,
not yet.
Let me put let me put a parenthesis, a note, big note. In some countries, it is. You can pay with that. And we work with investments and assets with partners with that. That is actually the flexibility that we create and that we operate with from our lending partners, the lenders partners. And so, yes, you can use it, but perhaps you can't buy your pizza out there as it was once. It was a good time, but no, you shouldn't enter the payment space, because people argue about that. Oh, but can I buy my food with that? Hey, natural resources, and if you go back to the time where you could pay with a potato or with your bag of wheat, that's a long time ago. Okay, so let's not enter these kind of discussions because they are a little bit too old. So let's enter the discussions of, you have an asset, it's called Bitcoin, you can exchange that, yes, but no, don't use that to pay your bread. It's insane. It's you wouldn't do that with a gold ring. It's insane.
Well, I have a different argument, and it's about the reason why you do it. So
Right.
it's a way of, I sometimes use it as a way of spreading it, and
Right.
showing it that it's easy, showing it
Right.
that it's fun, and if you download this app, you can have a Bitcoin in 10 seconds. So it's
Okay,
but I wouldn't maybe do it on a day-to-day basis.
Nay, right, no, right. So what we're talking about here, and I agree with you, is that you can own it, you have it as your asset, it's something that is worth, but it's not optimal that you would make it a payment thing, because payment service is completely different than financial instruments. Let's make that clear. So when I talk about a possibility to create a credit or to manage an asset such as Bitcoin, it's not about payment services.
Yeah.
So payment service is just a transaction from A to B. That's different. You need different. Let's talk about the timeline. So, for example, you need a quicker clearing time, and that is a different system. So you can clear the payment, has nothing to do with your asset, because that could be in your wallet in somewhere else, right?
Yes.
For example, credit cards operate like that. It's a payment system.
Yeah.
It's not where your assets and your investment is.
I see.
Yeah, so we are in agreement. It's there are different things for different purpose, and Bitcoin, I believe, is not created to create a payment transaction one to be. No, but it's an asset. It holds a value. It's capital.
Yeah.
It's wealth. The same as gold. The same as a reserve of capital.
Yes. Yes. Indeed. So time is running very fast. I have a big clock here on my wall. So we're trying to sum up a little what we've talked about, and we usually finish off asking the same question almost. So, Angelica, what would you like to say to the women that are listening, or men, juggling work, family, putting some time into personal growth and relationships, when it comes to financing their own time or making more time and financing their, I don't know, dreams or projects?
The first thing I would say is make always sure you understand, so you can have your independency, your freedom, and freedom is ownership. So what do I mean by that? Is make sure you understand that not just rely on what the media is saying. don't read just
good advice.
And that's number one. So reliable sources perhaps are not the media, what we read. And like I said, what is true for Sweden might not be true in another country. So there are other alternatives. There are other ways of seeing structures and assets. London operates extremely different than Sweden and then the Nordics, for example. It's much more advanced in London than it is in the Nordics on the financial sector, for example. The second that I said was freedom, because when you want your financial freedom is that you can manage your own money and time, like we started and we discussed that. We said, think about where you put your time, right? That is freedom, and that's wonderful. That's the opposite would be slavery, right?
Yes.
So think about that. And the third is the ownership, because when you have the freedom, you have to remember you have a responsibility. I always teach the kids that. So if you want this, it's your responsibility to take care of that, right? It could be a dog, it could be a toy, it could be your food that you create. So this is important, that you think, yes, I will take care of that, because it's given to me. It's an energy. So you should look into that as your ownership of your freedom and independency. And that's knowledge. That's focusing then on your priorities.
Yeah.
I would say that's a good thing to think about when you talk about capital, when you talk about allocation of capitals, for example, to Bitcoin, and when you talk about investments that you would like to do in your life, right?
Yes.
Does that make
And-
sense?
Yeah, it makes
Absolutely
very good.
makes completely sense, Angelica. I mean, I need to ask the final question. I mean, we had amazing topic today, and the time is ticking. If our conversation could walk away with remembering one thing from this conversation, what would it be? One conversation that you remember to our lovely listener out there.
The world is in transition.
Oh.
Don't be just sitting there, because the world by default is changing. Change is the normal thing that happens. Don't be afraid. Go. That's what I would say. Go.
Yes. Angelica says go, then we go.
There we go.
Thank you so much for guesting us. I don't know, coming here, and I'm so grateful that we finally got an hour to speak with you and have you here. And thank you for your laughs and your beauty and your Brazilianness.
Thank you
We
so
need
much.
it here in Stockholm. So please
Yes.
stay.
It's an honor to be here. I love Stockholm. I love to be based here, even though I travel a lot and work internationally. It's an honor to speak to you both. I'm very happy that we had this conversation, and thank you to everyone for listening. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Angelica. Thank you very much. We're so glad having you, and your energy is fabulous. So thank you.
Energy is your currency.
Great.